Welcome, girls. Hey, back at
Nice
Swish
to see
Co-Create.
everyone.
Oh, yes.
My first time here.
Oh, sorry. I know. Okay, so Malinda Lee, thank you so much for joining us. You know what?
Thank you for having me.
I have known you for so long,
Yes.
girl, and marketing and communications, that's your gig, but you have helped me in so many other ways. You know what?
Well,
and
you
I really
too,
want.
Tracy.
I
You
want to.
too.
No. I really want to say that.
Love
There is.
that.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good.
Sorry,
Good.
sorry,
Enjoy.
sorry.
No. I want to hear everyone else's story, though.
Well, you will. You will.
I think
Yeah.
just acknowledging where we are, because I think that the Swish location is Swish. It's pretty flippin' cool. Like, it's really nice. It's a great location. I feel like we've done some Hue Crew here, and it's been so welcoming and amazing. So if you guys haven't checked it out, what's the address at Swish?
703 Corridon Avenue.
Right on.
Unit 4 on the second floor.
Yeah.
Hey, say no
Yeah,
more.
so it's pretty cool.
Say no more.
It's been really
But you know what?
nice.
It does it's definitely girl power here.
Totally.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
definitely
Totally.
feminine. I
Yeah.
know. Yes, and you know what? We do have some very astute audience members that might be firing some questions at
I
us.
like
but you know
it.
what? They're secret guests. You know,
No.
our secret weapon. Again, welcome to Francine Poignet.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thanks for
Bachelor in
having me.
Winnipeg.
Our
Yes.
honorable Hue Crew member.
I know, and I'm sorry. I really want that dress.
I know, it's amazing.
Okay. I really want that.
I might be able to find one for you.
Okay.
I feel like I'm more into her shoes, and we don't want to draw
no.
attention to everyone's shoes because Tracy has a shoe issue
I
or
know
a
I
foot
do have a
issue.
shoe issue,
No,
but you
those
know
are
what?
good.
No, the dress is great. It's
The dress
Michael
is great.
Thank you.
Kors.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shamelessly
Thank you.
or
No, I'm into it.
unabashedly
I'm
do
into
it.
Michael Kors.
I'm into the whole
Yes.
look.
You should touch it.
I know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we all touching?
Yes.
It's
Okay,
smushy.
we're all
I like
touching.
it. I like it.
my.
It's awesome.
It's
Go
that
for it.
neoprene.
Why not?
It's that neoprene. It's
It
like,
is neoprene,
it's
yeah.
a wetsuit. You know,
It's
she
good.
can go into
Amazing.
the pool.
I
and,
could,
If you really want to.
if I wanted to.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like
If it
we're
got
getting
really hot
into
in here.
fall now, so I feel like that's just like a dream
yes.
for us.
Yeah.
You know, that if we could just find a place that we can jump into a pool, but it's not even that hot out anymore.
Oh, come
have
on.
some
Okay, okay, let's
Let's
not
not
get into that. Let's not get
No.
into that.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, so,
Bummer.
Back to you.
you know, back to our special guest,
Melinda.
Melinda.
Yes,
Okay.
hello.
So, hello.
Hi.
We're trying to very gently deflect the attention off of you. Because you are, I know. It took a lot even for you to come and sit in this chair.
I'm
And
behind the scenes all the time.
I know.
you
But no, this is so much fun. So first of all, I know, let's talk about your background. You know, your family, where you come from, and a little bit about what you're doing now.
Okay. Well, my family originally came from Hong Kong in 1961. Is that correct? I believe so. 1961, and. My dad has been very involved in the community, not just my dad, because you talk about girl power, because my mom came in
your
1968,
mom. Yeah.
and without my mom, my dad couldn't do half the things he said, and I hope he won't be watching this, so it'll be
No.
fine. My mom might be.
But your mom, so
I
I've
know,
met your
yes.
mom at
She's
a few
incredible.
occasions.
Yes.
So your dad was
Lieutenant Governor.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor.
I don't like to say
No,
it,
no,
but
no.
he is, and
So,
he was
he
in from 2009, so it was 10 years ago, to 2015. So he had a 6-year term, and it was fun, but we are so happy
that it's over. So I just want to acknowledge your mom.
She's
is
incredible.
why I brought your dad up, because I was in politics during the time that your
Yes.
dad was lieutenant governor, and I remember being at events where your dad was at.
She is.
And your mom is literally like a shining frickin' star. Your mom just eludes confidence and passion, and my eyes never went to your dad. My eyes always went to your mom, and we're talking about girl power, so I just wanted to
absolutely.
acknowledge.
No, but it is
I just wanted
true.
to acknowledge your mom because I know who she is, and I've seen her at events, and just a woman of grace. Like there's no
She-
other way to describe her.
This is one of the things that I get very upset about when people always say, your dad, your dad, your dad. But my mom, she, without, she is the backbone,
100%.
his backbone. She is incredible, and she actually volunteers just as much, if not more, than my dad. I would say they volunteer equally, but they do things together, and she will very, honestly tell you the only reason why she became involved volunteering because she wanted to spend time with my dad, and that's how the
cute.
kids
Yeah.
became involved. And I mean, just last week, I know this is going to air later on, but just this past Folklorama celebrating the 50th year, they were actually honored because they were both volunteers for 50 years of Folklorama.
Yeah, your parents are incredible. There's
And
no
at the
doubt.
time, my eldest sister was 16 months, and the other one was a newborn. And then I came 10 years later. But
wow.
so here she is volunteering in the kitchen with 2 babies, sometimes at home with the living grandmother, sometimes with the grandma, in Chinatown for Folklorama.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about just like the cultural parts of relationships and men and women and just there's a whole host of things that we can go into, but just as a person who firsthand saw your parents. And again, I mean, I'm a big fan of your mom, and I'm just happy we got a chance to kind of acknowledge her, and I hope she's watching.
Well, I
we
think
can tell
she
her
receives
that there's a lot of young women who looked at her and were just like, "Oh, we love you. You're amazing." And
no, she is, and a lot of people may not remember but she's an entrepreneur herself. She was a working mom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, and you know what? I guess maybe this whole conversation is going to be a little bit more cultural based, as if you watch the Hue Crew online, you
will
can
see.
see that we are all come from different ethnicities.
You shall
and
see.
even, I mean, Francine, and Francine, from the Métis and the mixed multicultural, Francophone.
Yep.
I'm Japanese Canadian, but you know what? I mean, getting back to volunteering. What does volunteering mean now? And I mean, you are into it like
She's like the
huge,
bomb, yeah.
Melinda.
Nobody's business.
But you're doing it. But how do you get the younger people to come on and buy into that?
Well, you know what? It's mentorship. That's how I got involved. I mean, I grew up in it too, so I already had. But I had incredible mentors growing up in the Chinese community and outside.
Well, who were they?
Well, my dad, of course, my mom, and so many other people in the community, such as the late Dr. Joseph Du, who is one of my dad's best friends, and Art Mickey, as you'd say. I didn't know him as well as I know my Dr. Du, my Uncle Joe. I call him Uncle Joe. The late Philip Chang and his wife Shirley Chang were another couple of great people. And currently Dr. Patrick Choi is incredible, but his wife Stella, she has an incredible story too, and they're very shy, so they might not like me mentioning their names. And another person that I look up to is my grandmother. So she is also another entrepreneur, and we could talk about her story another time. She's 99, and she's amazing.
Share it now.
Share it now.
I'm sorry.
Entrepreneur.
I'm so fascinated by this. So did your grandmother come?
She came in 1974.
74.
So she came after some family tragedies. My mom said, "No, I want you to come to Canada. I want you and my 3 sisters to come to Canada and to be with me, and we'll take care of you." And that whole family moved. There was
and grandma lived with you guys. That's what you said, the living grandmother?
for many years. So she,
amazing.
Cool.
We've had a lot of family deaths, and so she had her own business in Hong Kong. She had to take over from my grandfather when he died unexpectedly and very young, and she had 5 kids from the ages of 1 to, I guess, I don't know how old my mom was, I'm sorry, please forgive me, maybe 12, I don't know, maybe 9, I don't know, but so she had to teach herself how to take over his business, took over, and when they were ready for her to retire, my mom said, "Okay, you guys all come here," and so my mom and my dad brought them to Canada one by one at different times, and then, and sadly, she's had to endure a lot and still has, even while she lived in Canada, because we'll talk about this another time. I don't want to get into that because I'll cry, but we have a rare family disease in our family. I don't have it, but I talked to Tracy about this a lot, about the survivor's guilt. But I would love to bring my sister on one day, and she could tell you her story. I'd rather she tell you her story than me, because it's not mine to tell, but it's a family story, and we'd love to shed light on
this. So it is,
And I guess
it's a hereditary disease, but it skips. but it's the
Well, you have a 50% chance of getting it.
Yes.
I was a
You
lucky
did.
50.
She was a lucky 50, but you know what? It is your sister. It is your mother.
doesn't-
It is your
yeah,
grandmother.
it's your blood.
It's still your
And,
family. Yeah.
You know, and you're all living it. But again,
100%.
that's a different story. But I guess the journey that I would like to kind of talk about is the cultural journey. So, you know, Rana too, with your family, you know, coming from Pakistan
Yeah.
and coming over. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, my parents came, you know, it's interesting because my parents were, like, my mom was 18 and my dad was maybe 20. So my parents have actually lived here longer than they'd ever lived anywhere else,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, but it's funny because you know, this will air after hopefully my niece is born. But so and I'll give you an example. So my youngest sister is having her first child. Her and her husband John are having their first baby, and she's due sometime this month. And you know, just as a parent, like I've been asking my mom. I'm like, Mom, like you were 19 when you had my brother alone, and you had just gotten to this country. Like, how did you do this? My sister has 7 people around her, and it's still a challenge, right? Like,
Yeah.
but because you care.
Yeah.
And my mom was just like, she didn't even know what was happening. She didn't know what labor was. No one had told her what to do or what
There was no
pregnancy
books,
was.
there was no,
There was
like,
nothing.
And
Prenatal
19, we were
classes.
all
And in
we still consider
19,
ourselves being
imagine
kids.
being
Yeah.
19.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 40, and then you tell me about having a kid. I'm just like, oh my God. But there's so many things. So I just think that these stories of like your parents or people like my parents who legitimately had no clue
Yeah.
of what they were walking into. No language, no culture, no nothing. They're having kids, or I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
So I always say, and you'd probably say this about your mom, and that's why I want to take time to acknowledge your mom. Was that, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone stronger than those immigrant women who had led these families through some of the most difficult
sure.
things. I just don't know how.
I agree.
I just don't know how, and I can't. I know I could never do it.
Yeah. Well, we never immigrated. We were born and raised in, I was actually born in Calgary, but my family's all from the prairies, and so we have the Franco-Manitoba
Yeah.
Métis background, and so, which we're grateful for. And yeah, so we've always just been here kind of thing, and
But a big family.
And a big family, yeah. We have family gatherings of at least 30 plus, you know, when
wow.
the uncles and aunts and the grandparents are there. And,
Yeah.
and most of them, thankfully, are still with us, you know.
Nice.
And, you know, rest in peace to those that aren't. But
Yeah.
we have, you know, 30 on one side, 30 on the other side, mom's side, dad's side. So
Beautiful.
we're always loud and boisterous, and we
Yeah.
walk hard and fast, and, you know, and
You have to cherish every moment with them.
I
too.
love it.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, it's
Agreed.
really good. Yeah.
And I
Agreed.
think for my family background, it's kind of, you know, it's you know, embracing the immigrants coming in. But I was born and raised here too, much like Francine.
As I
And
was too.
and
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and we all are.
Yeah.
My parents actually were born here, so I'm like actually third generation.
Okay.
So
Wow.
they were born in Haney, BC, and they were part of the whole internment after World War II.
Wow.
So
Wow.
there's a whole interesting story now that is coming to light
Yes.
as we get older. You know, and for me, you know, sadly, I lost my aunt and uncle, and you know, in their last few months or whatever, stories would occur or whatever, and it looked like, you know, there were stories about them in childhood because what happens in
As you get
dementia and
dementia,
everything
yeah.
like that,
Right.
but they remember, you know, those old stories, and it was just like, for me, it was like, I wish I had asked. I don't think, but I think it's the Asian culture
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
that they don't.
They
but
don't
actually,
ask.
I've
Okay.
also learned that I am doing stories with World War II veterans, and they don't talk. Like, they don't
Wow.
talk about what happened. They don't talk what happened in the prison camp, and they don't know what happened to the
And,
guy
yeah.
beside
Yeah.
him.
And you know
Yeah.
what, you talk to them, they're taught to be stoic.
Yes.
Stoic is the best.
Yeah.
Stoic,
Stoic is it is actually the best
Yes.
word to describe.
Hashtag stoic.
And not to bring it back to me, because
No.
it's not about me, but we didn't talk about this disease. Growing up, we honestly didn't even know how some
Right.
of the people in our family
Yeah.
passed away.
They just
Exactly.
passed away, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't know that this
And
was.
And it wasn't until, it was really, I need to credit my sister and my cousin who are so vocal about it, who have the disease, and my other sister. Sorry, I don't want to forget about her. She has it as well, and she lives in Toronto. But they are the ones who are really starting to be vocal about it because it's
Awareness?
you don't
It's awareness.
awareness. It's
Yeah.
very rare, but
we're-
it's awareness.
Yeah. So can we just say the name
Yeah.
right now? Or is
Von
it-
Hippel-Lindau, VHL. So that's a rare disease. It's closely related to cancer, and it's a unrelenting disease. But sometimes you don't have a lot of symptoms. My mom has it, and she's had a couple of surgeries, but she's been, knock on wood, pretty stable for the
Wow.
last
So-
20-some years.
Wow.
My other sister in Toronto, she's had her issues. And the one in Winnipeg that actually a lot of people might know her, Maggie Lee Grant. She lost her sight because of this disease.
Oh my.
She okay, you have to talk to yourself,
I
but
know.
because it's her story. But she is right now recovering from her 9th brain surgery. So
So this woman, just to let you know, I've met Maggie. Malinda is an amazing person. Maggie is like
Also.
beyond. Like she is absolutely beyond.
we have a great support system too. So.
I know. No, and they do. But so, anyways, okay. So let's shift all of this teary-eyed stuff.
I know, it's hard.
Yes,
because
please.
another big thing that I want to talk about is that you and your family, of course, are very devoted to being, proponents and spokespeople for, people living with disabilities, and especially what Maggie has done, and with the CNIB.
Well, human rights has always been very important to our family. And I mean, my father used to be the commissioner of the Human Rights
Yeah.
Commission many
I
years
was gonna
ago.
say.
So this was long before there were any disabilities in our family. So it's always been something that's been close to our heart. And I'm a true believer that, everything kind of ties together in your life when you don't
Yep.
know. But since my sister lost her sight, we have even more so taken a look at human rights, whether it's accessibility rights, which my sister's becoming a pretty good advocate on that. And I
girl.
love helping her.
Girl.
And not only that, but also rights. Right now, my grandmother, who's 99, accessibility for senior
Elders.
citizens and
Here,
elders.
here.
So I mean,
Here.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
it's hard at our age. We're
Totally.
all, I don't know how old you are, but we're all in our 40s.
38.
Oh,
we're all-
yeah,
we're all
close. Yeah, so
basically
in our
there.
40s. But
Yeah.
it's harder getting older
Well,
and watching
oh.
family get older. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
It's
and
just
we
talking
become,
about this.
we become caregivers.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah.
throw it out to our audience. Like, Annalie Ames is sitting here, and it sort of just twigged on me when we were talking about people living with disabilities. You're in the film world. How are they addressing people, or how much more, or writing roles for seniors and writing roles for people with disabilities?
I was producing with my best friend, Juliette Hogopian, who's a producer in Winnipeg, and we were specifically looking at old, Alzheimer's and different disabilities for a very long time. One of my dearest friends in the world is a stand-up comic who works in the UK a lot, called Tanya Lee Davis, and she's a little person. And I wanted to write her into pieces, and that it's something that is gladly being embraced, slowly being embraced. I think as more people talk about things, the film industry goes as population goes and as people go, and I think the more that you talk about the things you're talking about, and I see how hard it is for you. I also really believe that the tears and the things that you bring to this story open up the story.
thank you.
And so leaning into that is a really big piece for the film industry, for storytellers, for, it's
But
it's
I'm trying
not
really hard not to have tears because I'm wearing mascara. So
I get that. I also think
And we
that
have
we
tissues,
don't like to share those stories necessarily because they become private and they become personal. But because of that personal piece is the way that filmmakers and the world embraces it. So I really, really respect you bringing it up and also saying it's your sister's story, because it is your sister's story,
so true.
but it's also your story.
It is
no,
because that's your
as a
sister.
no,
For
she
sure.
is.
For
Yeah,
sure.
she
well,
is-
we
she's
have
never-
we have a good
No.
Yeah, we have a good bond, and I think you know, we have an incredible family. We have, we really, really do. And a lot of people don't know this side of our family. They just see us on the surface.
On the social.
And you
present,
see them, and this is like, it's so incredible. And like, going back to the conversation we had heard earlier, that there's human beings behind every role, right? So just as somebody who was in those circles while your parents were in those circles, you know, they're stoic and they're so graceful and they're funny. Like, your dad's hilarious.
No,
like,
he
you know
thinks
what I mean?
he is.
I think your dad's hilarious.
We laugh at his jokes.
I actually personally laugh at jokes.
When it was left on the cover, he laughed.
Just
He laughed,
really, really good people, very welcoming, you know, and but again, they're human beings, and no matter what the title is, and no matter what the role is, they have history, and there are people behind that, and I guess that's the thing. So it's really nice to have you be able to open up about people who I immensely respect. Go ahead.
Your dad and my dad were friends.
Oh,
My dad
really?
was Carrie Hawkins,
My father loved Carrie Hawkins. I'm so sorry for this.
and so you talk about disability. My father's funeral, and your father and my father were very, very close, and I just realized that as you're speaking.
I didn't know that you were Carrie's.
So my father was the president of Cargill Canada
Yes,
for 26 years.
absolutely.
He started Centerport. He was on Hudson Bay. I mean, you name it, he did it. And at his funeral,
Mad respect for your
and your dad as well, and your mother as well, and which is really strange that I'm sitting here, because you think about that as a piece, and my father dying of vascular dementia, and watching somebody so accomplished literally lose every piece of themselves. And at his funeral, I spoke to all the business people in Manitoba, including every dignitary and everybody that was there, saying, who do you want to be? Not who are you, but who do you want to be, and how do you want to affect the world? And your father and mother happen to be two of those people in my world who I respect greatly, and have, through my parents, I feel that they are doing diligence to that piece in the world. So I
Thank
it's
you.
funny that I'm sitting here.
No, but I mean, thank you
happens for a reason,
for
like
bringing
you
up
said,
the
it happens for a reason,
relationship.
you
And
know.
yeah, I mean, we were just talking before this what a small world Winnipeg
Right.
is. It's incredible, but thank you for sharing that, and I will share that with my parents, because they have so much respect for your late father. But what they will tell you, everything they do is for their children and grandchildren, and I think your father would be very proud of the legacy that he's left, and how you're doing your part to carry it on. And I think I'm hoping I speak for all of us,
I think you're on point.
but
Nailed it.
and I also think we speak for all of us why we all chose to stay in Manitoba. You're a
Absolutely.
Calgarian, but you're Manitoban.
I was only born there. I came when I
Okay,
was 2.
perfect. But
Not
our
that I don't
parents
like Calgary.
chose Manitoba, and we all decided to stay here to make, because I think we all have mad love for Winnipeg
100%.
and Manitoba.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing that I respect. The business people, the leaders, such as your dad, and my dad too, because my mom, as why she decided to build businesses here, because they love this community, and our job here is to try to keep it going.
Keep it going.
I know. Keep it
Agreed.
going. Yes.
Just to jump in on this.
Yeah.
I think that what we're really talking about is it takes a village.
Oh, right.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
I mean, especially with these two ladies, because of the connections there with their respectful parents.
Yeah.
You know, you see how you two are, and I mean, it's amazing, you know, and I think that we need to have that in our discussions a little bit more, because, like, you know, I have little kids, and who do I want my kids to be? How do I want my kids to grow up? It's around women like yourselves,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
Right on.
Well, and I mean, yes. I mean, for you got Nico. I have 2 boys, grown boys, and
We don't
you
have
know,
children. But
I mean, you're
but we have
into it.
aunties.
But it's the influence. But it's the influence. We had this conversation
influence,
before, and it takes a village.
Yeah.
You know, you were just talking about your nephew turning 20.
I know.
Right?
And shout out to my other nephew who's 11.
Who's 11? Like,
Can't leave
when did
anyone
that
out.
happen?
But you know what? I don't think I could love either one of them anymore if I had my own. I mean, I don't know. And hopefully one day I'll be blessed with children. But if I'm not, I they're my legacy right
Totally.
now.
Yeah.
And not only that, you talk about me not having children and having 2 biological nephews. I have so many nieces and nephews.
That's right,
and
because it takes a village.
and I think all of us, I'm not
100%.
sure, but did you have a lot of aunties and uncles growing up to not
literally,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like I'm auntie to more, like I'm literally
Honey, you're
everyone's
gonna come
auntie.
to my house tonight and be auntie to my
It
kids.
is, yeah.
Everyone's
I'm not talking
auntie.
about Sim too.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Sim
But
the whole trip.
I think what's fun about us is that we get to be
Yes.
the ones who piece out when we don't want to be
Yeah.
there. So,
Okay.
to be honest.
For rent.
Yeah.
Now
Here,
dinner
have all
time,
the ice cream. I'm out.
We have 5, but we have a blended family of 5 children, so it's
Yeah.
amazing to, and then many nieces and nephews that I just recently took a breather from my teenage children to go, oh my gosh, I have to help you guys. You're all so little, right?
Yeah.
You know, and empower them in the world to tell their story too. It's really, really
So-
important.
You know, one of the last questions that I'm going to throw out is that nowadays, okay, so we've talked about all of these great mentors, parents, whatever, friends. Now the big thing is influencers, social influencers that have, to my,
yeah.
in my thinking, haven't really done the homework, but
think so.
all they've been doing is been a very narcissistic thing about it's all about me and look at where I am. But they have this crazy amount of people and watchers. So I'm going to throw it to you, Francine.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
That's okay.
Absolutely. Even
It's
this morning
in your-
over
it's in
coffee,
your
you know, I
realm.
get my
Yeah.
Vogue.com and all my fashion business and things like that emails coming through. And one of the stories that stuck out exactly that was Michael Kors. Not to give them a tag or whatever, but had an influencer rather than a supermodel. And it was, you know, just Jane Doe influencer for Michael Kors, and this is what she does. And so she's gotten way more followers even than, for example, supermodel. But that also takes a lot of work, though. So I kind of have a catch-22 vision on that because I'm learning more about, well, they can do it. They're doing it. You know, maybe they know the right people to speak to or whatever, what have you. But I don't disregard any hard work.
No.
Or delayed gratification. I'm teaching my 11-year-old son delayed gratification because he's so now it's taking time to download, Mom, what's going on here. You know, sometimes if you're waiting for something that's really good, give it a bit of time. But the social influencers and the fashion influencers out there, you know, Chiara Ferragni and all those ladies, they're just blowing up overnight. So it's a new fad that we are having to deal with and accept. But at the same time, I think that they need to learn, you know, etiquette pros. Like I was watching a model camp in Winnipeg this past weekend. I was out of town, but I was following the story online. They're learning. They're learning how to pose. They're learning how to strut. They're learning how to pose, how to say cheese, and how to be, you know, politically correct in social settings, which is, you know, something that you need to do.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of split right now, and I don't yet have 100% for or against it, but I'm exploring.
It's interesting because I don't feel like it's
'Cause
a
it's
for.
now.
I don't believe like it's a for or against
Yeah,
conversation.
it's a now. It's a reality.
I feel like it's a how much seriousness and influence should they have?
Yeah.
Because a job's a job,
a job is a job.
and a paying job is a paying job.
Yeah.
And you know what, man? If you're 16
Yeah.
and you're making some
And she's
cash,
traveling across the
good for
world.
you. Good on you.
Taking
but
pictures.
but I guess the question is you know, have we taught our teenage nephews and kids, blah, blah, to not be as influenced? Like to
I know.
understand that they are just
Yeah.
influencers, and maybe that's what it is.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
I know.
it is up to
Yep.
us more mature people to
Right.
to help guide the way. and
Guide
we-
the way, navigate. No,
Yeah.
no.
And I really think that, you know, I think about my father because we've talked about him, and he had nothing, and he left Manitoba to go down to the States, to UND with $50 in his pocket to get into university. He couldn't get into university. He didn't have the money. He didn't have any influence at all. And then they wouldn't let him in, so he went down to Fargo, and they said, well, you need $50 to come back with your registration. He said, I don't have it. And he went and played pool that night and won his registration fee as a woman left. I mean, those are stories that kids now, I'm sure there's kids out there that have those stories That's the influencers I want to hear about.
Yeah.
Woohoo! And that's where we're going to
That's
start.
where we're
gonna
gonna
start.
end it.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you. What a
Malinda.
That was
Thank
so
you
fun. You are
awesome.
just
Thanks,
a joy
Chrissy.
to have
Thanks again.
on. I really enjoyed having
Well,
you.
thank you for
Awesome.
inviting me.
Yeah, yeah.
Social influencers.
And give your love to our parents.
Hey, you got your work cut out for you.
You gotta influence us to work harder.
I'm evaluating you.
But we're also here to
We're
mentor
watching.
them.
We're
But
watching.
we're here to mentor them if they need us.
Yeah.